Today we're looking at a broken fan connector on a PlayStation 5. The job number is 11116 and we have some trace damage where the fan connector has broken off just about here where my finger is. This is the damage we have, so I believe the fan connector itself has 3 pins. We've got 1, 2 and 3. This one still seems pretty strong, to be fair. I don't think I'm going to rip this off. I'm going to keep it where it is. These pads here, I believe, are ground. Not having the ground pads here obviously affects the strength of the connector itself. I still have the pads on the connector. I'm thinking what we do is 3 jumper wires, 1, 2, 3, and I'm also thinking about using copper braid on each side for ground. This will just ensure that the connector itself is extremely secure. I'm just going to start by removing the actual pads off the connector by just putting a little bit of flux on. There we go, and our connector's back ready. Now if we just take our grinding pen, we're just going to grind away at the traces that we have and just clean with some isopropyl alcohol. Again, this one is still strong enough, I think. Should be okay with using this. Just going to get a tiny bit more on this one. There we go. Just to make sure. And like I said, to make the connector really, really strong, I was thinking about adding, let me see if I've got any thinner braid, because I think that might be a little bit too thick. This is a 1 mil. I think that's a bit too thin. Yeah, we'll go with 2 mil. So if we just scrape back the conformal coating here, we should be able to connect the braid to here, cut it here, and then we'll have a really strong ground point. Flood the copper braid with solder itself, because as you know, copper loves solder, and it should be very, very strong for the connector. So if we just take away some of the conformal coating here, just like that. And then if we use this as a ground pad, I think we'll be good to go. So if we put a bunch of flux here, take our iron, just put solder here, and then put the pad in place. There we go. And then we can solder the port to this ground pad. And if you try and wiggle this, like this isn't going anywhere, so it's really secure. And if we do the same on the other side here, wipe it away. This one's also a bit too big, but I don't want to cut it too small because the copper braiding just breaks and falls apart. We don't have any exposed traces here that will connect it to any sorts of wires, so we should be okay. So again, we just add some flux, get some solder on the actual pad, take the braid, just put it in place. Just like that. I'm going to give this some more solder. Again, just to make it really strong. And those are our anchoring points. Bit of a clean with some isopropyl alcohol. And as you can see, neither pad is going to move in the slightest. Now we have to just tin up the pads themselves. So I'm just going to add some flux, a bit of solder on my iron, some there, and also some just here, if it wants to go. There we go. And now we take our wire and we just make sure we get that good connection. There we go, nice and secure. And just rinse and repeat that process. Let me put a tad more bit of flux down here to help. As you can see, it's dancing around. There we go, nice and secure. There we go. And then if we just give this a clean with some isopropyl alcohol. Straighten out the wires that we need to straighten out. We also need to make sure the wires are tinned, so I'm going to tin each wire now. That'll give us a secure connection between the piece of wire and the connector itself. So we're just going to add some flux, solder it again onto the iron, and just take the wire, tin it. There we go. And now we put the connector on. Start off by getting the ground pads ready. Now if we take our connector, we should be able to put it in a decent position. Put the iron on here. And hopefully there's enough heat transfer to make that solid, which I believe there is, just like that. Turn the board around, always trying to make our lives a bit easier. And now solder this bit down. Perfect. Now I'm just going to add a tiny bit of solder here to help with that connection even more. There we go. And just the same with this side. There we go. And as you can see, now this is solid. This port is absolutely solid. It's not going anywhere. All that's left is to just apply a little bit of flux on the pins and attach them to the wires. So we're just going to push down, connecting the wire and the pin together. I'll be using a little bit of solder on each pin just to help. Tiny, tiny, tiny bit more flux on each one, just to secure it. And there we go. Now the traces underneath should be attached to the pins here. But there's one way to test that. If we put the multimeter into diode mode, I should be able to get a correct reading on a voltage drop on these 3 pins. So on the first pin, we get a 0.5 voltage drop, which is normal. I believe the middle pin is ground, and the last pin, we get 0.4. Now with the multimeter in continuity mode, which is a mode that beeps, when connected to ground, this should beep, which it does. This should beep, which it does. This one shouldn't, which it doesn't, which is good. This one should because it's ground, and this one also shouldn't, which it doesn't. What I'll do now is I'll test to make sure that the fan's working. If it is, I'm just going to add some conformal coating to make sure that none of these traces underneath the connector pins actually touch and bridge, because that would cause a problem. Okay, I've partly assembled and put the fan in just to test. Let's have a look. Blue light, which again is always good. And by the looks of it, we have fan spin. And now we've confirmed that the fan is spinning and working. I'm just going to apply, like I said, some conformal coating just around the fan area. Could go quite a lot here just to make sure that these pins don't bridge at all with the wires underneath. Here we go. Now we have solid conformal coating. And that is it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. If you need a repair, feel free to click on the link down below in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.